Guys, I hope you're doing well. So I think I have to say right off the bat that I have a sous vide going in the kitchen. So if you hear anything that sounds kind of like a water fountain, that's what's going on. I film in our large living room kitchen open concept area. Hopefully one day I'll have my own office so that I can kind of isolate myself a little bit better. But anyway, that's apartment living for you. So today's video is going to be kind of convincing myself that I don't need to buy things. And it's a few specific items that are on my wish list that I'm not entirely sure it makes sense for me to buy. So it's not kind of a general will I buy it for all the new releases. It's very much targeted to a few things. And I wanted to film this before the Sephora VIB sale because obviously making that determination ahead of the sale will either allow me to purchase it in the sale and save some money, or just know that I don't need to actually purchase it. So basically, I'm going to be comparing these items to products that I already have in my collection. Some are essentially the exact same product, they're just in different packaging, and some are different. So the first item is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Face Palette, the Sculpture Edition. So that's the current 6-pan palette that Hourglass has released for this holiday season. I may still purchase the 4-pan palette, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that palette in a bit, but I think that would be more unique to my collection than the Ambient Lighting Face Palette. So that's one. The next product is the mini of the Charlotte Tilbury, I think it's called Bronze and Glow. Yeah, the mini Filmstar Bronze and Glow. So I actually purchased the full size, I think earlier this year, and kind of embarrassed to say that I don't think I've used it yet. So this, part of the purpose of this video is to actually use the full size or the original product to make sure that it is actually something that I like and that maybe it would make sense to pick up the mini or the travel size. Insert joke about not traveling. Okay, so the next product is going to be the Anastasia Soft Glam 2. And I have the Soft Glam original palette and the Norvina palette. And all the shades in that mini, or Soft Glam 2, however you want to call it, come from one of these palettes. So do I need the Soft Glam 2 if I have all the shades already? I wanted to use all of those shades to determine what I thought. And then last but not least is the new Natasha Denona highlighter. And this is the I Need a Nude Glow highlighter. So I'm going to be comparing that to the Super Glow highlighter from Natasha Denona. This is in the shade 1. And it is a different formula, I think, from the I Need a Nude, but I'll go into my reasons for, I guess, comparing it to this product later on. Okay, so I have my base applied. I have the Glossier Future Dew Oil Serum Hybrid. I have the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Foundation. I have the Charlotte Tilbury Corrector in the shade 1. And I used the Cover FX Power Play Concealer in the shade N Fair 1. And the ColourPop foundation, by the way, that I have is Fair 20N. And then I used the Fenty Matchstick in the shade Amber. I probably should have forgotten a cream contour product, but I kind of got carried away and I forgot. And then I also have the Fenty Eye Primer on and the Benefit Gimme Brow in the shade number 1. So I think that is everything that I have on my face right now. I think they're all cream products, and everything I'm debating purchasing is a powder product. So I think we're okay there. Okay, so I haven't set my under eye, and this concealer doesn't do a terrible job of creasing, but I'll probably set it anyway just to be sure that a mascara doesn't transfer or anything like that. So I think the first product I'm going to talk about is the Hourglass palette. And this is a product where I don't have the exact same configuration as they've released in this year's palette, obviously because it's new. But I've purchased 2 of this form factor in the past. This, I think, was, I don't know if this was the first one they released or not. It just says the Ambient Lighting Edit. And this has dim light, iridescent light, diffused light, and mood exposure, luminous flush, and luminous bronze light. So that is what that looks like. And I remember, I think when I hauled this, saying that I think a lot of people were pretty negative about this palette because the pans aren't huge. I think certainly for like a bronzer maybe is a little bit more of a challenge to get like a larger bronzer brush. Like this is the Refer P22, and you can kind of see the difference in size there. So I think these are a good thing to have in your collection to travel with, but because I don't reach for these on a daily basis, do I really need to purchase another palette where 3 of the shades are the same? So this has dim light and diffused light, so the light yellow and the more kind of amber shade, I guess. And then this also has the Mood Exposure blush, which is a nice blush. I think it's this one over here. So 3 of the products would be the same for me. Again, if you don't have this older palette, this one from last year, the Ghost palette that I purchased, this also has dim light and diffused light. I think the blushes on this are different, as are the rest of the powders. So I have 2 variations here. To purchase another one just seems a bit silly at this point. I am going to take the Real Techniques B02, which I think has been discontinued, but so I'm just going to use some of that diffused light to set underneath my eyes. And I'm just going to do a light dusting where I think I might apply other powder products. So unfortunately, I think this brush has been discontinued, but you can see, you know, that size works pretty well for this size pan. Anything bigger could be a bit of a challenge. So not only do I have this and this kind of all over face palette, I also have the 3-pan highlighter palette in my collection. So this is all highlighters. This was the original palette I think they released, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember when Hourglass had that more like, you're gonna get reflection, Art Deco, Art Nouveau type font before they switched over to whatever the current like sans serif type font is. But this is like their original ambient lighting powders. This one has dim light, incandescent light, and radiant light. So that's another variation of dim light that I have. I think I've purchased several of these outright. I have this again in the original font of the brand. This one is Luminous Light, which at the time they hadn't released, I think, their highlighting powders. This was kind of the closest you got to a highlighter. I have, let's see, this one is Ethereal Light, another type highlighter option. I think I remember Leisha from X-Parkage talking about this one. This one is Diffused Light, so again, another diffused light in my collection. I think before the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush setting powder came out, this was kind of my go-to non-drying or dry skin friendly powder. So I have that. I have some of the blushes in full size. So this one is Euphoric Fusion. This one is relatively new to me. I think it was on sale at Beautylish. And then I also have the blush in Ethereal Glow, which looks like that. So in one of my most used products is actually the Hourglass blush palette they did. So this is the same like trio form factor as the original setting powder palette or the highlighter palette. So this has Luminous Flush, Incandescent Electra, and Mood Exposure. So again, I have Mood Exposure. I think I had Luminous Flush as a single somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where it went. This Luminous Flush shade is, I think, one of my favorite blushes of all time, not just from Hourglass. And I don't know if you can tell, there is a bit of a dip in there. It takes a while to get through these products. So I think this pan size is a little bit bigger than the 6 pan. And it's just that much easier to get your brush into it. So I'm more likely to use one of these size powders on a normal basis as opposed to just saving the 6 pan palette for travel for the most part. And then I also have this 4 pan palette of blushes that came out last year. And this would be the same, I think, form factor and size as the new, what was it called? Sculpture? Yeah, Mini Ambient Lighting Edit Sculpture Unlocked. So that would be the same form factor as this. So the reason why I'm thinking of purchasing this is, again, like this size of pan isn't terrible for blush because you tend to use a smaller blush brush than like a powder or bronzer brush. This is the Rephr number 4, for example. And just to kind of show you kind of that size comparison there. So this, by getting this new Mini Ambient Lighting Edit Sculpture Unlocked, which is a mouthful, I would be saving a bit of space. If I were to travel with that, you know, I could get a full face of powder products, I think, out of that palette versus this larger one. Not really a big deal, but I just wanted to go through my thought process because I think it's easier to kind of get into collector mode and think I must get what's new and exciting every year. Okay, so I already used the diffused light, and I know that the blush Mood Exposure, I'm going to use it out of the blush palette, like I said, because it's just a little bit easier to use that way. All right, so I'll go ahead and use that Rephr number 4 since I mentioned it. It looks like the kind of marbling on the top of this one is a little bit more of the lighting powder and less of the blush. But you can see just how easily that kind of goes on. So these are really beautiful blushes, and if you don't have any of the products that I showed you, I think having Mood Exposure in that palette is definitely a good one. So, very pretty effect. So I have some studio lights on, but it's, I guess, dusk or twilight now, but I am sitting next to a window, so sometimes the lighting is a little bit harder to figure out. Okay, so those were the main powders, I guess, that I wanted to use from my Hourglass collection, just to kind of give you a feel. Again, I would definitely recommend checking them out if you haven't already. Okay, so next up, I'm going to use the Filmstar Bronze and Glow. And I do have a cream contour product on, like I said, but I don't have any kind of bronzing product. And from what I hear, this is kind of like a neutral contour slash bronzer. So I'm going to use my Real Techniques B01 here, and I think I'm going to start applying it kind of as a contour. Does pick up quite nicely on the brush. There's also some kids playing soccer outside. I don't know if you can hear that. So I think this would actually be a really good product to travel with, because I think it's kind of hard to overdo it. So if you've seen in some previous videos, I have the shade 1 and 2 in the Airbrush Bronzer. I think originally I purchased 1 and then I found it too light, and so I purchased 2. I think that's really pretty. I will swatch the other Charlotte Tilbury bronzers I have. So on my pointer finger, I will do the Bronze and Glow. And then I will do shade 1 on my middle finger. You can see how like yellow light that looks. And the Bronze and Glow actually does feel creamier. And then that is number 2 medium. So I'm not sure how well these are going to show up. So I like that that's a little bit more neutral. Seems to have a very slight sheen to it as well. So I actually really like that. So it's $29, which is a very good price point. And I did want to show you, I have, obviously this is the original standard full size. I have this Charlotte Darling palette. I don't know that this is the same form factor, but I would imagine it is. And so there isn't a huge difference there, but I think if you're traveling, it would be enough of a difference. So the thing about the price point on the Charlotte Tilbury as well is that often deluxe samples have a $25 minimum spend. And so it's good for that, basically. You're not spending much more than you would have to get a deluxe sample. All right, so going in with the highlighter, so it's a tad bit more gold, but I think that's really pretty. I think that actually works with my skin tone. All right, I think I'm getting the mini. So not talking myself out of that. So I'm really only planning on traveling twice this fall, overnight anyway, and once is to my mom and dad's for Thanksgiving, and once is to my mom and dad's for Christmas. But if it's a limited edition product, which is what it says it is, it might be worth picking up. Okay, so I saved the other cheek, and that is because I wanted to apply the Natasha Denona. This is a much more white, icy highlight. And the reason I'm showing you this, again, this is shade 1 Fair. I really do like this highlight. And from all the swatches I've seen, I think what really kind of captivates me about the new Natasha Denona product is the packaging and the embossing, or whatever you want to call it. And I think looking at it, it just looks too dark for my skin tone. So I have a Natasha Denona highlight that I like. I think it might be a tad too icy for this cheek look that I have going on. I think the Charlotte Tilbury actually is more flattering with the combination of other products I have. But I've used this product before, so I know that I like it. So I shouldn't buy it. I know it's one of those things that I would purchase just because looking at it, I like it, but that's not a good reason to purchase something. So I don't think I will be buying it, even though it is really tempting. Maybe down the road if it goes on super sale or something, but like that highlight, the new Charlotte Tilbury one for holiday, and the new Pat McGrath, all of them, looking at swatches, I just don't think they're ideal for me, and sometimes you have to pick and choose what is actually going to work for you. Okay, so let's talk about this eyeshadow palette, the Anastasia Beverly Hills. So, like I said, I have the two palettes that Anastasia drew from to create this Soft Glam 2. And so I'm going to use those shades on my eyes today. And this would definitely be a case where obviously bringing both of these palettes in a makeup bag would take up a lot more space than that one little 8-pan palette. So this is a 14-pan palette, and the Soft Glam 2 has 8 shades, so it would be about like that big in theory if it's like the same kind of overall packaging. So I'm going to start off, my eye primer is pretty much set. I'm going to use the Inglot 28 PO, and I'm going to apply tempera all over my lid. And because I still have the sticker on the palette, I'll just use my Charlotte Tilbury. Ooh, it's a lot of product I picked up. So I normally start off with some kind of light matte to just make sure that everything's set, make it easier to blend other shadows. And I think I purchased these palettes when they first came out, and they do have an 18-month shelf life, apparently. I think, like I showed you all the Hourglass powders I have, I feel like even though, let's see, this one, it says it has a 12-month shelf life. Where's the bigger one? Yeah, this one is also 12-month. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think baked powders have more longevity than like some of these shadows that may be a little bit more like silicone heavy. They can just get a little weird after a time. And I think I've noticed that my Modern Renaissance palette doesn't work quite as well as it used to. So I think you could make a case for repurchasing some of the same shades if you have older shades in your collection. I have actually, like, my go-to quad if I don't know what to use on my eyelids, I think is a combination of shades from the ABH Renaissance palette that I purchased as singles. And you can see I've made a decent dip into at least some of them. If you have a more sizable collection, sometimes it's just hard to get through stuff. But anyway, I do really like some of the ABH shadows. Okay, so going into the Norvina palette for the shade Incense, I'm gonna take my MAC 286, or I'm sorry, yeah, 286, which is a tapered duo fiber. Okay, so going into the crease, it's quite pigmented. And part of this exercise, if you can call it that, is just to make sure that that combination of shades by themselves works for me. I don't think I mentioned, I did actually almost purchase this palette. Nordstrom had it, I think it was on sale for like 20 or 25% off a little while ago. Might have been 25% off. I think it was more than the Sephora VIB sale. So that kind of, I guess, weakened my resolve or tempted me, however you want to put it. But by the time I finished work and was ready to purchase it, it wasn't on sale anymore. So I'm not sure exactly what that was about. Okay, so that was from the Norvina palette. Okay, going back into Soft Glam. I'm going to go into the shade Mulberry, which is a lot more red looking than it looks on the screen. I'm not sure if that's accurate. And just put a little bit in the crease. All right, and then I'm going to use the Redford number, which one are you, 23 brush, and I'm going to go back into Incense in the Norvina palette. So I guess there is something to be said for having one palette that combines both shades, as it is kind of annoying to go back and forth. Okay. Just running a little bit underneath. All right, so next I'm going to go in with Dreamer out of the Norvina palette. I'm going to use a Chikuhodo GSN 9 brush. This is, I guess, my preferred brush for shimmers or metallics, and if you are interested in picking up, this is a very crumbly shade. If you are interested in picking up this brush, I think you can get it at Beautylish as part of their gift card event. So I think for every $100 you spend, you get a $20 gift card. And for a lot of brands, I don't know if they sell Anastasia. I know they sell Charlotte Tilbury, but if the brand is going to be sold at Sephora and you are a rouge, it's probably a better bet to buy it at Sephora because you get that discount. It's not like you're getting money towards a future purchase, and like a percentage off is just a little bit easier to make the most of than having to hit $100, getting 20 back, and then you don't want to get like to 120 because then you still only get 20 back, if that makes sense. Okay. One thing I always do like about ABH shimmers, that one did seem to have quite a bit of fallout, and again, I don't know if part of it is like the age of the palette. I don't know when this palette originally launched. But I feel like they're a little bit easier to apply. Like they're more like traditional shimmers in some ways than like the ultra glittery or metallic shades. So especially for an everyday eye, when you want a little bit of sheen, you want a little bit of shimmer, but you don't want like something super intense, I appreciate it for that. And then going into the Soft Glam 2, the other major shimmery shade is called Sultry. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that on the same brush and just place some of that in the outer corner. Let's see if I can blend it a little bit. I probably should have put this shade down first, to be honest. Like, it's not sticking terribly well. And if you are just interested in like the Soft Glam palette, I think I just saw it at Costco maybe for like $29, which I think is the same price as the Soft Glam 2. Something like that. So if you are interested in getting more shades and you like that color story, that might be a good one to look at. I think I got a little carried away here, blending this out. All right, so I'm going to go back into the tempera shade on the 28PO, and you can see how like stark that is. Like that just almost like erased. You know, depending on your preference, if you don't want something quite that intense, you could just use like a setting powder. If you want a matte brow highlight, this would be a good one. I'd say ABH shadows are really blendable though, which I appreciate. I would rather have to work to build something up. I mean, I think there's still plenty of pigment there, as you can see, but okay. All right, so I'm going to finish off with liner and mascara, and then I will be back to give you my final thoughts. All right, I just realized I forgot to put on liner before I put on mascara, but I think that's okay. Like this eye look is plenty enough. And then I just have this Sol de Janeiro lip balm in Soulmate that I got in my BoxyCharm. Just something kind of neutral on the lips. So I think my conclusion is I do want to purchase the mini Bronze and Glow because it is limited edition, and eventually when we are able to travel, I think it will be useful. I think for the price point, it's good, and I don't want to miss out on it while I have the chance. I have hope that we will be able to travel again one day. I realize it was kind of inadvertent that I'm framing all of this in terms of what's travel friendly. That wasn't really intentional, but it's just kind of the nature of the products that I was interested in. And same with the Soft Glam. I like this eye look, and I think it would be helpful to have it and, you know, just kind of have fresher shadows. Again, I think that's only $29, so a pretty good price point, especially if you did purchase it during like a 20% off sale. If you aren't Rouge at Sephora, the Anastasia website I'm sure will do lots of sales, especially during Black Friday. And then there are lots of other retailers they're sold at that also have sales. So I think I will probably purchase both of those. I don't think I'll pick up the Hourglass 6-pan palette for the reasons I mentioned, but I think I might pick up the 4-pan during the sale. Let's see what it has again. Because in theory, if I have a mini bronzer and highlighter, do I also need those products in another pan? I mean, yeah, there's a bronzer in Golden Bronze Light, there's a blush, there's an ambient finishing powder. I might have to think about that one. I think part of the reason why I'm interested in it is because so many people loved the 6-pan version when that came out last year or the year before. So we'll see. Maybe I'll buy it and then return it if I find that it doesn't work for me. And then the Natasha Denona highlighter, it's one of those, like, I think like a lot of people, like, highlighters are just so objectively beautiful, and looking at them, they're beautiful, and so it's hard not to want to purchase them, but it doesn't make sense for me to buy it and then for it to sit in a drawer is the question. And that product would certainly not be travel friendly, although of course that's not really the metric I'm using. It's just, does it add anything to what I already have? So I think that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat different video from me. If you have any thoughts, please leave them down below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.